Hey up. Time for another film that I bought as a kid from Poundland, and a little bit more millennium trash, I believe. We're going to be checking out Nutbag, the story of the Vegas Ripper. An American slasher film from the year 2000 and directed by Nick Palumbo, who's probably most well known for directing murder set pieces, which funnily enough I've never seen before. He's also quite well known for being a relatively controversial figure online. The film stars Mac Hale, who weirdly enough directed a film we're going to be discussing later on in the series, Switch Killer. Now, I remember nothing about this film. I've definitely watched it when I was younger, but I cannot remember a single thing about it. But I've had a lot of comments on other videos saying that people are looking forward to me getting to this one. So maybe there's some entertainment factor here. Let's crack on, shall we?
I wander around all day. You bitches.
The film follows an angsty incel known only as Killer. We follow him for 10 days as he chats to his pet spider, kills prostitutes, commits hate crimes, and just sorta angstily monologues to camera. And that's about your lot for story, really. It is literally just 10 days following a serial killer around. It's pretty dull, to be honest. There is not a lot that really happens here, but it's written in such a way that I was nearly crying with laughter at this one. I haven't laughed quite this hard at one of these yet, and to be honest, it kind of bumps this one up in its favourability. Now, the main character in this is absolutely awful. One of the worst possible people you can imagine. He's sexist, he's racist, he's homophobic, but it's all written in such an over-the-top, angsty and almost childish way that you can't take anything that he's saying seriously at all, and it comes across more as parody.
I have this reoccurring dream. A giant bird flies over me and swoops me up.
Stupid American pig!
Bitch!
The acting in this pretty much exclusively comes from Hale, and he's not great, but funnily enough, he is perfect for this sort of role, I guess. He's got that sort of angst, that broody, and he puts on that sort of macho bravado. But then, at the same time, he just whinges constantly to camera about how he hates himself and everybody else. It's laughable, to be honest, it's really laughable. The rest of the characters are screaming women. Like, they don't really have lines, and it's pretty sleazy, so if you see a woman, give it 5 minutes, she'll be topless or full frontal, pretty much guaranteed. There is a lot of nudity in this, but most of it, funnily enough, just comes from cutouts that he's got on his wall that he puts next to his Leatherface figurines. It's not shot particularly well, it's not awful, I've seen a lot worse, but it's pretty flat and standard. There's a few bad angles here and there. Apparently it's shot over, it's supposed to be made over a 10-day period. The shooting wasn't 10 days, but the story's set over 10 days. But I couldn't tell you when one day starts and another one ends, to be honest. It just sort of flows weirdly. The gore, you'd probably think I'd have a lot to say about the gore, but it's really difficult to talk about. We're going to get more into why later, but what I can say here is the gore that we do get isn't much. It's not awful. To be honest, it's pretty decently made. There's just not much of it. There's a decent neck cut and a stabbing, but it's nothing to shout about, to be honest, really. Funnily enough, one of the best parts of this film is the soundtrack. It's not terrible. You can tell a bit of effort was put into it. Now, it's not amazing by any means. I'm not going to rush out and buy it on double vinyl for 50 quid. It's it's okay, and it stands out because of how bad the film is, that it's actually not terrible, just some sort of like electronic-y, ambient-y, drone-y sort of stuff. It's not bad, you can tell effort was put into it. Now, this obviously falls heavily into a lot of the tropes that we like to see with millennium trash. Stock sound effects, that sort of early 2000s angsty brooding nature, and just the main character just screams early 2000s. Now, I know in my last review I mentioned Postal 2 when I was reviewing Demonium, but I've got to mention it again here because the lead character in this, the killer in this, is just the Postal dude, minus the leather trench coat.
Would you like to go out with me?
No, I don't think so.
I do know there's a hell. I live in it.
So this is a tricky film to discuss, and the reason for that is that the version that I watched is heavily, I'm talking heavily, cut. It's about an hour and 8 minutes. It should be about an hour 20, so you've got about 12 minutes missing from this. Things that are missing are pretty much all of the gore. There's a little bit of gore in this, but you're talking a massive chunk of the gore, and apparently some of the racism's been removed, which is good, you can get rid of that. Now, you know I hate censorship. I've said on this channel for years, BBFC butchering films, and it ruins people's artistic visions and our enjoyment of a film. But in this instance, it kind of does something else. Now, obviously the lead in this is hateful, he's horrible, he's awful, and I think if we'd have seen all the killings and stuff, it'd have given him a little bit of power. Now what this cut has managed to do is remove all the power, all the violence, all the killings, and what we're left with is majority this dude just whinging to his pet spider, and it is ridiculously funny. A scene will play out like this. You get a brief killing, like you don't see anything, it's implied killing really. And you get 10 minutes of him sat at his table, just whinging about how he hates everything, he hates himself, he hates the world. Then we cut and he's killing somebody else, we don't really see anything. It's a minute or two. Then we cut back for another 10 minutes of him walking through the Vegas Strip, just sort of whinging and moaning to himself. And it's comical. It is ridiculous. Now obviously I'm not advocating for censorship, but by chance, obviously, you know, broken clocks right twice a day, this has managed to make something else. It's taken this hateful, angsty, horrible, of its time slasher film, and it's just turned it into a ridiculously funny comedy.
My whole existence is a nightmare. Maybe someday I'll wake up and be dead.
Okay, and time for the print. It's not too bad, to be honest. It's clearly shot on digital, and while the colours are pretty good and there's no imperfections to the print or anything like that, it's very low quality, it's very pixelated, to a point where some of the font is really struggling to be seen on screen. It's very juddery. The sound's okay though, again it could be mixed a little bit better, but the whole thing's fine really, it's very watchable. And on the disc, we get chapter select, we get trailers for Nutbag and trailers for other Hard Gore related films, and we get a director's note, which basically just reads like it could have been written by the main character in Nutbag. I'm guessing the director and the killer in this film are a little bit too similar, really. Not a great look, not a great look. But that's it for the disc. We don't really get that much at all, to be honest, which is a shame, saying that the film's heavily cut as well. Quite minimal, really. Okay, case time. it's fine. Plenty of screenshots again, and the blurb reads okay. Again, there are tons of quotes on here, so let's have a little look, shall we? This Herschel Gordon Lewis quote doesn't sound all that positive, really. Same for this one by Leatherface himself. It's very matter of fact. They don't really give opinions, they just sort of describe the film as opposed to give their thoughts on it. This one from Kevin J. Lindenmuth is very overly complimentary and a little bit creepy. And this Fist Fright one is just kind of wrong. But then these reviews are more than likely for the uncut version, so that might have changed things a little bit. Lastly, with this case, for the first time ever on this channel, this case has no runtime on it at all. Anywhere. They're probably trying to hide that this is cut and just over an hour long. This disc also came with a Poundland leaflet, but it's just identical to the one we looked at last episode. So here it is again, not got anything to say about it. Overall then, this is prime millennium trash. It's an angsty, hateful and nasty film, but it's so over the top and has been censored in such a way that you can't take any of it seriously, and it just comes across as hilarious for all the wrong reasons. I wouldn't recommend this for solo watching, definitely not, but definitely grab your mates, grab some drinks, and crack this on and have a laugh at just how angsty and cringy people were in the early 2000s. Now there is an uncut version available, but it's for import and it's very, very expensive. Probably not worth it, whereas the silly edition, as I'm going to be calling this one, is easily available and very cheap. So, surprisingly hilarious. It's not a good film, but it's a funny film. And next episode we're going to be mixing things up a little bit. We're going to be moving into a different part of the world with a Spanish film. The ridiculously named Vampire Killer Barbies.